good morning. First, I want to thank the invitation, and as Sonia was saying, I will speak a little bit about a more or less recent program in Portugal called the Affordable Rental Program, which is a kind of a trial of the public sector to involve the private sector in creating this intermediate, this middle range rental market segment. I have here a first part of a historical context, which I'm just passing by to save some time, but the idea was just to point out that in Portugal, housing is mainly in the hands of the private sector. It's not part of our welfare state. Our welfare state was built in a moment when housing was already being taken out of the system. Only 2% of our housing stock is public housing. We have a fairly small and stagnant rental market, and all these years of betting on a system of credit and private sector, also with a subsidized credit system, created an economic development model really dependent on real estate, on banking sector, on foreign debt, and this means that Portugal was in a really vulnerable point when the financial crisis hit. So real estate, banking, credit, and foreign debt. So we had it all, and when it hit very hard, 1/3 of the construction companies went bankrupt, and the construction basically stopped. There was a time when the government tried to change the economic model, but really fast the idea was to trying to support it by redirecting the sector towards urban renewal, also supported by tourism. So this meaning that we all know that internationally we are in a moment of housing crisis. This is in general a result of an international context of the financialization of housing, and also the change of the dynamics of the investment that came in the aftermath of the financial crisis. So this is general, but in Portugal we added to that a profound change in our legal frame. And as I was saying, the main aim, the main goal of these changes was to boost the tourism sector and to support urban and promote urban renewal as a way to boost the economy and overcome the crisis. And this was done mainly through tax incentives, foreign investment attraction programs such as Golden Visa, and mainly liberalization and deregulation of the construction sector, of the tourism sector, and mainly of the rental market sector, which is completely changed in order to achieve this. And the result was mainly the amount of investment in real estate was, as I showed before, lower because construction nearly stopped. But what happened was that this investment was concentrated in small points, mainly Lisbon, Porto, and Algarve, and in renewal, in the renewal sector, and in tourism and luxury housing segments. So here I have this to the north, but we could have exactly the same to the area of Lisbon. Before the crisis, let's say, the investment was dispersed throughout the territory. After the crisis, it was completely concentrated. The scale of the colors is exactly the same. It's completely concentrated in the main centers and mainly in Porto, and here is much more intense than it was before. So the result was intense transformation of these areas, and added value of the land, and the prices, mainly in the rental market, just start rising dramatically, and not being followed by the increase in the income of the households. So the study I'm going to show you was made in 2019, so it is not really recent. So the moment was this one we have there in the graph. Since then, things didn't got better. So, but still, the data I'm going to show you is the previous one. So then we have to imagine what changed since then. So with the rise in prices, we had public protests and demonstrations, and the government had to do something to react to it, and it created what it called a new generation of housing policies, which had as stated main goals guarantee decent housing for all. And this for all is important because this means that until this moment it was understood that public spending, public sector would only work with this really small area of public housing, which amounts to 2% of our housing stock, as I said, and suddenly middle classes were not being able to access the market. So this idea of for all is saying that public sector should also cover a part of middle classes segment. Also increase significantly the stock of housing with public support, and also public support is different from public housing. It's just creating all these middle systems with public and private, third sector. All this was implied in these new policies, and also favor the rental market and favor urban renewal. And in these policies, the rental market was presented with this distribution, meaning that it was divided in 3 areas: public, the public housing, let's say, or all other ways of subsidized rent for the lower income segment, the free market, and this middle segment was new in our system of public policies. This does not mean that these specific programs were all new. There was programs already targeting this public, but this idea that our segment, our rental market is divided in 3, and there is a middle segment which should have some kind of public support and was targeting middle classes, those middle classes that cannot afford to access the free market and should be supported. This was kind of new in the public discourse. So what we are going to talk about is this program. So the name is here in Portugal, but is the Affordable Rental Program. And it was the first one to be implemented of all this proposed system. So the idea of the program was simple. So the goal was to promote this intermediary level by encouraging the landlords to lower their rents to this affordable level, in exchange of tax benefits. And the idea was, if the rent is 20% below the median rent value for a certain area, and if the contract with the tenant is below this limit of 35% of effort rate, this means that landlords can have exemption of property income taxes. At the time, property income taxes were a flat rate of 28%, so the idea was you do not pay 28%, you lower 20%. It seems reasonable, it will be okay. Probably we will have a good part, a good share of landlords going with it, and the idea was the goal was something around 20% of new contracts entering this segment. That was the goal that the policies were pointing at. Three things I would... Oh, the relation between the house... Yes. Yes.
The indicator is the housing cost over
Yeah,
property.
sorry.
So it's the relation between the rent and the income.
And the income. Sorry, it's a direct translation.
So the person renting would have to share their income, like they would have to say how much is their
Yes.
income?
Yes.
Would that be part of
To
the
be
renting
eligible,
contract?
Yes. There is a platform where both the landlord and the tenant would have to put all their data, and each person has to apply, and then they will have a certificate to say, I can enter until this rent.
Okay, so you have to find a person that wants to rent your place, and then together you have to make the application to get the...
No, it's separate applications. Landlords would register their flat within the system. And so a price will be determined for that based on any number of reasons, below market rent, etc. On the other hand, potential tenants would apply. This is my income, which means I can pay between 10 and 35%. So there will be a match, and so the government will make, the real landlord would associate the flats with potential tenants and then make the contract, while paying a fair rent to the landlord.
But
Basically, it's a sublet.
Yeah,
It's basically the government renting and then subletting within this.
But you don't have to have the match done by the system. You have a certificate, and you say, if you find a landlord that is in the program and has a rent that you can pay with your salary, you make the contract, and then you say the system, I made the contract, and you have the benefits.
sorry to be so specific, but of course we're working with all this.
No. I like
I
specificity.
have another question, because the German rental market, the tenants' laws are quite protective, but once you have a contract, it's very hard to get you out. But that means you have a fixed term contract, and after that you can be kicked out, is that right? And that's what
So let's, in that part I said I'm going just to go through the historical context was because of that. We had a fairly regulated system, and then it was in fact a transition, but with not much impact, and in 2012 we had a complete change, which means that you could make a contract with whatever rent you want by 1 year, and it's okay.
1 day.
Or 1 day. No, first 1 year, and then 1 day. Yeah. So it's completely free, and that's one of the reasons the rent just went skyrocket, because that happened at the same time as Airbnb and everything else. So.
Yeah, I was just wondering. Can you please repeat which requirement? No one understood them.
Yeah, I was just wondering what happens if your income changes. So this is based on your income in relation to your the expenses of the flat or the rent of the flat.
It's, income and rent of the flat.
Yeah,
Yes.
but then if your income changes, so for instance, if you have a 5-year contract,
Doesn't matter.
doesn't matter, so it
should be
stays,
eligible at the beginning of the contract,
Yeah.
and then it's
Yes.
a contract period.
right, so if
we
you're,
are talking about 5 years contracts.
yeah, but I mean,
Yes.
you can
Yes,
lose your
you
job
do.
after 6 months, or you can gain, yeah, all right,
It's
thanks.
basically a norm. After the process is gone, you have a regular rental contract with the state, which is subletting the flat. And yeah, you get a regular rental contract with the state that is subletting you the flat, and there are no protections in case anything changes. Those would be in other policies which do not exist, like policies for protecting.
Sorry, Simon. Here you don't have the sublet system. It's just a contract between the two, and the landlord has the exemption of the taxes.
Okay, I'm confusing. Yeah,
That's
anyway.
another program.
Anyway, there are regular rental contracts with
Yeah.
no protections.
But that's it. You make a contract. If you really don't have a way to pay, you can stop the contract by yourself. That's the moment you make the contract, you have to meet those criteria, and in principle it's a 5 years contract, and if then you cannot, you just go away, but that's up to you.
Okay.
So, but there are also other 3 points I would like to make based on these small premises. So first, the affordable rent level is set in relation to the market and not to the income. So it's affordable, but it does not mean that people can afford. So just a name. Second thing is that by setting, that's what you're calling, by setting this limit of the 35%, we are not changing the rents. The rents are set by the 20% lower below the market. By setting the 35% limit, I'm saying that only a certain group that earns enough to meet those, to afford to pay those rents, are able to enter a publicly subsidized program. And in my view, this means that the government is saying that if I'm paying to that group up there, I have to find solutions to everyone below that limit. And the third thing is that the reference is this medium rent value for each place, which should be updated every 6 months. This means that the state, the government, has to compute these figures and share publicly the numbers, finally, of all the numbers of the values of the new rent contracts. So finally, we could monitor the rental market. And so we did it. So this program interests us because of the program itself, and because it brings the figures finally publicly, and it brings a certain number of criteria that everyone more or less knows, but how to calculate this effort rate, the law says now exactly how to do it, what numbers should you use it. The limit is 35%. Okay, it's a reference. Normally everyone talks about more or less 1/3. It's 35%. So we have the criteria established, and you have the figure established, so we can make a portrait based on some references of the rental market in a certain point. And so we made this study. First, making this portrait, and the idea was, for each area of the country, trying to understand a family in the median, it's not, we don't use the average, but yeah, the average family, let's say, with a median salary, could it access the market at this point in this area or not? And if not, how many months of salary are they lacking? So we are asking this question. And the second question is, if the program were only starting. If this functions, if all the landlords enter this program, will that solve the problem of this middle income family? So these were the two main questions. And I put this here because this was made by a group, not by me. So it's me, Aitor Bareoro, Mariana Almeida, and Luisa Ribeiro that developed this study. And first, we developed for a newspaper because we thought that we needed to qualify the public debate. It was not an internal academic thing. So some conclusions of the study. So this is the market as it was, as I said, in 2019. It is not better now. All the reds and yellows is where this middle income family cannot afford a middle, let's say, house in that area. And you see how many months they are lacking. We arrived to 27 months in the end of the year that if you could in that year work just 27 months more, you could buy, you could rent that house in your limit of 35% overburden. And we see that the problem, okay, is all this coastal area of the country, but mainly Porto, Lisbon, and Algarve. This is a really touristic area. Entering with the program, if we bring all the rents down 20%, let's say, what we see is that we could at the time more or less solve for the middle income family this area. Still Porto, Lisbon, Algarve would continue in that area, and mainly Porto and Lisbon would continue in a really bad shape. In Lisbon we still have those black areas at more than 17 months lacking. So it would not solve the problem in the areas that are with the biggest problem. Another thing is trying to understand how the area of inaccessibility was growing. So this data is still with the program, if the program was being enforced and being implemented. We can see that those areas in the mainly Porto and Lisbon, what we see is that the area that is not accessible is growing month to month. So what's happening is people searching for houses in the center are going further and further and further, seeking for an affordable house, and the area is growing, and this means that also commuting times, commuting distances are growing at the same rate, at the same time this area is getting bigger. And finally, a third question was trying to understand what was the target, what was the public target of these policies. So what we have here is for each city one bar, for each bar all the population of that city, of that municipality, distributed by income levels. So for Coimbra, let's say, this is the 10% richer people in Coimbra, this is the 10% people with lower incomes, this is the median income. So people are distributed, and now we can see in the group of the population of each municipality, how can they react or access or not to this rental market. So this area here in the bottom end is the group that finds their solution in public housing. It's the public housing there is. This gray group here is the ones who can access private free market. And this red area is the area that of the people that can access or could access free market with the program. So that's the area that the program creates new of people that now can afford and could not afford before. So this means that in cities like Bragança or Castelo Branco, the program is targeting lower middle class, the 30% level of people, etc. But when we arrive, and it's more than 10% of the population, but when we arrive to the Porto and Lisbon, this publicly subsidized program is targeting the 20 or 30% richer group. Another point is this blank area. So that's why what I said when we are saying that we will only support those who can pay over the 30%, the 35% limit. We say, okay, so I'm responsible for all the rest. But there's a group, more than 50%, who cannot access a middle apartment at a middle rent in the place they're living. So there is a program to this group, there is a program to this group, and there is all those people who have no solution provided by the public sector. And so when we finally arrived at this point thinking, so the program was not that good because it was not meeting the needs of the tenants, then we found that the problem in fact was the other way around. It was not meeting the needs or the expectations of the landlords, so it had basically no one applying, it had basically no contract. So after 5 years we had 1,000 contracts by this system, so it's 0.1% of the rental market, so it basically does not exist. It was just an exercise to trying to understand this program and trying to understand, based on those figures, our rental market. So it's that.
Thank you very much, Nuno.